Today, we're on the grill. Now that we're outside, I'm going to show you how to light your grill. Before I get too far ahead of myself, I don't want to make it sound like there's a right or wrong way of doing this. This is just what I find the most efficient way of doing things for me. So you really only need a couple things to get your fire started. We're going to be using our charcoal chimney, we're going to be using paraffin wax cubes by Weber, and your charcoal. Now with your paraffin wax cubes, if you don't have these available, newspaper or any kind of paper that you're looking to get rid of can be stuffed under this chimney here and used as your fuel source. The paraffin wax cubes or newspaper, whichever you decide to use, are going to be a healthier alternative than using lighter fluid, and it doesn't leave that odor in your food either. Now the next big question is, what type of charcoal do I use? Do I use lump coal? Do I use briquettes? Well, it just depends on what we're doing. So there's really no wrong answer. You typically have two options. One is your lump coal, which is here, and you have your charcoal briquette, which is here. Based on my experiences, your lump coal is going to give you a shorter, higher temperature burn versus your briquette is going to give you a more even, longer lasting burn. So if I wanted to smoke a brisket or ribs or something low and slow, the briquettes would give me an easier time maintaining my temperature for a longer period of time. If I wanted to do something short and sweet and straight to the point like a steak or searing a chicken or whatever that may be, I'm going to go for my higher temperature, shorter burn here, which is our lump coal, which is what we're using today. The reason why I pour the coals in first is that there's a lot of that charcoal dust at the bottom of the bag, and that helps with getting rid of that when you pour your coals in first. Now the amount of coals that you use will be based on how long you plan on cooking or how much food you plan on cooking, and that's something you'll pick up as you start grilling more and more often. The next step is to light my paraffin wax cube with a match, and you'll see that it begins to ignite, and then put my chimney on top. Then we play the waiting game. By the time the coals are ready, you'll see the coals at the top start to turn over, and when I mean turn over, they're either ash over or turn really bright red, and then they're ready for you. Now we'll take it back inside so we can season our meat. Now what we're going to be using are thin sliced chuck steaks. I rinsed them off a little bit because we're not familiar with the exact source of where the beef came from. You just want to be safe. After, we're going to go ahead and start by drizzling a little bit of olive oil on both sides to help our seasoning stick and to add some flavor once it hits the grill. What I'm going to be using today is Everglades cactus dust. It brings a little bit of heat, it brings a little bit of smoky flavor, it just does great with the charcoal element and everything that we're doing with the grill. So whenever you're working with a new seasoning or something different or something that somebody may have passed on to you, try to taste it a little bit, try to become more familiar, that way you know how much will achieve the flavor profile. For example, these are 3 different seasonings that I use to barbecue, and all 3 of them have 3 different flavor profiles. Some of them have more salt, some of them have more heat. And once you become familiar with what each item produces in terms of like your savory flavor, in terms of your heat, then you can measure how much you need without overpowering. Now you may ask, how do I become familiar? First you want to shake it around, and a lot of these products have sugar and clumped together. You want to mix it thoroughly, pinch a little piece off and taste it. Now once you taste it, you may realize, hey, this is sweet, or hey, this is salty, or this is spicy. At that point you determine how much you need to add. But always remember, always remember, you can always add, can't take away. So if anything, go lighter and then add once you're done. Enough of my babbling, let's go ahead and start seasoning. Because I'm familiar, I know how much to add to achieve the flavor profile that I'm looking for, which isn't going to be too much, because it already has enough savor. And just like your grade school teacher taught you in math class, what you do to one side, you do to the other. So we're going to sprinkle lightly on the other side as well. And there we have it. I'm going to let that sit for 5 minutes while the coals finish, and then we're going to head back out to the grill. So earlier we were trying to identify when our coals are ready. As you can see, the heat is all the way to the coal at the top, and you'll know they're ready to go. What I tend to do is pour the hot coals on one side, and I leave the other side of the grill cool. The benefit of doing that is you can always cook your meat at the higher temperature on one side, and when you're ready to let it cool off a little bit or slow down your cooking process, just ease it over to the other side. Also, your grill will typically come with grill vents, which help regulate your temperature. The wider open your vents are, the hotter your grill will burn. Mine is wide open. Also, a common question that I see is, how do you get your grates clean? The best way to get your grates clean is to fire up your grill, get the grill grates hot, and scrub it. Now, just a precautionary measure, also remember those grill grates are hot, so when you're cleaning them, be careful. So my grill grates are hot, and I just take my brush and I just scrub from side to side in the direction of my grill grates. Now that our meat has had a chance to sit for, I'd say 5 to 10 minutes, we're going to go ahead and put it on the hot side of the grill. And just let it sit. Don't move it, don't touch it. You let it sit until you're ready to turn. Now, of course, the amount of time that you let it sit on top of that hot side is depending on how you like your meat. You have your medium well, you have your well, you have all the different levels of doneness. Now, when it comes to me, I'm not your well kind of guy, so I'm going to go ahead and flip it now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let it sear for a little bit longer, then I'm going to move it over to the cool side and let it finish cooking indirectly. I like to let it cook to about a medium to retain its juice. So this is the reason why I have a hot side and a cool side. I can put the hot stuff here. I just want this to finish cooking slowly while it's retaining its juices. Put it on the cool side while it's still cooking off a little bit. So you can see here that the steaks had also retained some of the juices, which is what we're looking for. You can also get a thermometer probe if you want to check the doneness of or the temperature of your meat. So what you'll also notice is once your meat starts to cook, it'll start to shrink a little bit, and that's because some of the juices and some of the fat is burning off of there, but we want to control how much of that we lose. And of course you control it by cooking it indirectly, and when I say indirectly, that means you have your hot on one side, and it's receiving the residual heat from those coals on the opposite side of the grill. Now where indirect is beneficial is if you don't have a smoker and you wanted to smoke some ribs, put a small amount of coals on that side, put your ribs on the opposite side of the grill, and let that go. Now you notice that we have a new little friend on the grill here. I got a piece of lamb and I just threw it on the grill just to see what happens. Now I just turned the meat, and what you can see here is that the hot coals are still over there, but that residual heat kind of still cooked up a little bit on this side. So we just took our steaks off the grill, and another little tip is when you grill or smoke something, when you take it off of the grill, it usually shoots up about another 5 to 10 degrees. Now what I'm going to do is while these steaks are still hot, I'm going to take a lime and just squeeze a little bit of the lime juice on top just to add a little bit of contrasting flavor. So I took my smallest cast iron skillet. I'm going to add a little more olive oil to the situation here, and we're going to grill some onions. I'm going to toss those around until they caramelize a little bit. So my onions are getting to the point where they're just about done. I don't want my onions to cook too much, it's just a personal preference. I'm going to go ahead and shut the vent of my grill to cut off the air supply. Now I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but air supply also fuels the heat, which is why the wider open you leave your vent, the hotter your fire will burn. I also just put the lid on my grill. There's nothing in there, but like I said, cutting off all air supply is the fastest way to cut off your fire without pouring water and rusting your grill. As you can see, the vent is closed to support the mission of cutting off the air supply. And what you also want to do is keep an eye on your grill and periodically check just to make sure your coals die off before you go to bed. So there we have it. Our steak is grilled. We have our onions on top, a little bit of lemon on the side for garnish. And we have our little friend, the lamb over here that we tried out. I sliced it a little bit and let's taste. So we have a piece of the steak there. Still pretty tender, juicy. Let's taste. That's good. Real good. In the words of my fiance, tastes so good make you want to smack your mama. Not mine, yours. Mine will smack you back. Right before we get back to the food, I wanted to show you guys our little herb garden that I'm growing out here. I also have peppers and tomatoes, but this will be relevant in 1 second. So I went ahead and took a little cilantro. I'm going to go ahead and rinse that off, chop it up, and garnish our meal. Said hello and I said hi. I knew right there.